r/AskReddit by Reddit and chill. People who separated divorced within 1 year of getting married. When did you know it was a mistake? Not me, but my dad. He got remarried after being divorced for about 5 years. I would have been all for it. But he met this woman in another state on a business trip and would travel up to see her every weekend after they hit it off. They knew each other for 6 months before getting engaged. The engagement was only for 3 months. My brother and I tried telling him about all the red flags, telling him to take his time. My dad is very well off financially, and we kept trying to learn him things were moving too quickly, that she was only in it for the money. She moved her whole family from their hometown to the city my dad lived in, including their elderly grandmother who needed constant medical supervision. Before they were even married, the pantry was full of Whole Foods brand food instead of the local grocery store, as was tradition. All new furniture, and had the house repainted, all at his bride-to-be's request. The marriage lasted all of 2 weeks. Apparently my dad's new bride had the gall to ask my dad to leave everything to her in the will and write me and my brother out. Only then did he realize she was in it for the money. The next day he had the marriage annulled. Someday I would like to know what it's like to fall so completely for someone that I don't recognize they are taking advantage of me. Must feel good for that instant before it all comes crashing down. When he choked me against a wall at a party. He was mad that I laughed at another guy's joke. People were passing by us but just kinda looked and kept going. Lots of other stuff happened but it took me a while to wake up and break away. I was in denial for too long. Super late to the party here. But I knew it was over when she started a fight at my brother's funeral because female attendees were giving me hugs as part of condolences. Sorry you had to deal with that. My younger brother passed away last year and I can't imagine having to think about anything else other than the pain of it. My older bro's crazy ex actually showed up to the funeral and used the whole event to try to get close to him again. Some people are just unbelievable. I knew a week after I got married when he slammed my head into the wall because he saw me looking at a man at an ice cream shop. I'm from the US and got married in England. This dude changed completely right after we got married. A couple of weeks later, I had to get out of there and come back to the US. This happened to me as well. I woke up the morning after our wedding and we were driving. He took my head and slammed it into the truck window. It was insanity to be with someone for years and instantly shit changes. It wasn't even like I was with the same person. She nearly killed me because she thought I was cheating from some texts that went to my mother. Weird, I had an unstable ex who almost killed us by driving erratically on a freeway in Chicago because he saw me texting "love you" to someone. It was my brother. When he said my son's suicide attempt interfered with his ex's birthday party. Excuse me, what the duck? I was blindsided by it. We lived together for a year about an hour from my hometown. We relocated, upon her request and desire, to my hometown prior to our marriage so that when we had kids, it's best to be close to family. We had a house we loved, a dog we loved, jobs we both loved working in, or so I thought. Married in October. She goes to visit her sister over the next Labor Day weekend and I can't attend due to work. Comes back the Tuesday after Labor Day and tells me she's living a lie and someone else's dream and she needs a divorce. I had no idea. Divorce finalized in January. She married some dude that her sister was friends with. And she met on that trip I was unable to attend. This September. Life is wild. Sometimes. Honeymoon. We dated for 5 years but on the honeymoon we had a big argument over my liberal use of sunscreen. She refused to wear any because of chemicals and I liberally use it due to my ginger skin. We seriously argued over this for a good hour and she refused to even go into the pool with me because of sunscreen chemicals. After a scuba adventure with her she could hardly walk because she got so burnt on her legs whereas my skin didn't change. She then tried to convince me that it was all my fault because I didn't force her to wear the sunscreen and that the honeymoon was ruined. It was then I realized I picked the wrong person. After a few more psycho arguments, mad at me because of something in her dreams. Mad because I didn't remind her to bring an umbrella. I had to call it quits. I can't stay with someone who constantly blames me for their own problems. Luckily no kids and I got back everything I brought into the marriage. I've gotta know. How did you date for 5 years and not have those sort of arguments tip you off? Or was getting married and still having those arguments sort of a tip off? When I found out she was sending Snapchats to a coworker, turns out she was sleeping with him. We got divorced. I met the girl of my dreams. We just had our first kid together 2 weeks ago. She went out for girls' night and met a new friend named Nicole at a bar. Started texting her a lot. Then going to hang out now and then. We had a baby at home and she kept trying to go hang out with this girl from another town over with no last name whom I was not allowed to meet. His real name was Wesley. And here I thought she was just going to turn out to be a lesbian. Not me. But my friend's sister. Her sister got engaged 8 months into a relationship. And got married 4 months later. Everything went well the first 5 months. But the husband started acting different. He wasn't chatty. His good morning good night kisses became dull. Etc. Her sister would ask if everything was okay and he would say I'm fine every time. Her sister didn't want to push him. So she waited for him to talk about what's bothering him. One evening after eating dinner, the husband said he wanted to talk about their relationship. Before he could talk about it, he started crying. He cried for a few minutes and then told her he's gay. The sister filed for divorce and after the divorce was settled, she wasn't really mad at him anymore. So she went to see him and forgave him. They became good friends and the sister helped him become comfortable with his sexuality. She even helped him come out to his close friends and then to his family. 5 years later, the sister is now engaged to another man and expecting their first child. The ex-husband is now very happily married to a man for almost a year now. A happy ending. Finally. I had been fooling around with this girl for a while. I never wanted anything serious. And I knew that from the start. Then my mom was killed. I went into a deep depression and this girl was there for me. Her mom had died of cancer about a year earlier and I guess we really bonded over that. It pushed us much further emotionally than we ever should have gone. We ended up doing a courthouse marriage. I knew within the month that I had ducked up. But I didn't want to just give up and get divorced. Once the emotions of my mom's death passed, I realized how toxic she really was. She was an incredibly unstable person and ended up just taking me into an even deeper depression. We divorced about a year ago, after being married for about 10 months. And I was immediately much happier. Marriage shouldn't be taken lightly. But people also shouldn't force themselves to be in unhealthy relationships. We all make mistakes. Don't waste your life with someone that doesn't deserve you. My sister got a civil marriage. Then they moved super ducking far away to the middle of nowhere cause he got a good job. My sister never finished college and he would remind her on a daily basis about it. She would get super depressed and he wouldn't believe her. She got sick once and he told her since she didn't go to the DMV that day she wasn't allowed to go to a theme park we were planning on going to that weekend. He would demean her whenever she couldn't get a job or even an interview. And she applied to practically everywhere within a 50-mile radius. He called her stupid in front of me and when I called him out he told me to mind my own business. If he wasn't twice my size I would have decked him. She left him after about a year cause he's obviously a raging a-hole. When she left he told her she has nowhere to go and if she went to stay with our mom she would just be a burden like me. I was like 19 and in college at the time. He's a rude ducking dong but at least she got the car and the dog. Always happy to see when the good guy gets the dog. Her running off with a guy she met in rehab was a pretty solid clue that it wasn't meant to be. Me too. Luckily we were not married but 5-year relationship. A cousin of mine divorced her husband after 6 months. She knew when we had to pick her up from her home after having been recently beaten. That day, we packed up all of her stuff and never let her go back. I'm happy that you guys could be there for her and help her get out. Hope she is doing well now. The day after we got married when he slapped me across the face, hard and completely out of the blue. No argument. No conversation leading up to it. Nothing. He said it wasn't that hard of a hit. He was just kidding around. And I was being overdramatic. He had never gotten violent with me while dating. But as soon as we got married it was like a switch flipped and he was a completely different person. It got worse very quickly. And I ended up filing for divorce 73 days after we got married. That reminded me of the scene in It, book version, when Bev's husband slaps her as a test to see what he can get away with. I'm glad you escaped quickly. She decided she was in love with her stepbrother a month after we got married. I'm pretty sure I watched a preview of a scene with the same plotline last night. My Mill got married the first time when she was really young. Left him a month later. Turns out he was a raging alcoholic. She had no idea because her family was super overprotective and they were never really allowed to spend time together alone before they got married. Who knew spending time with someone could be the key to knowing if they are a good partner? Not a year, but about 18 months. She was constantly complaining she didn't have friends after moving in with me. Joined a local soccer team. And she talked about one teammate non-stop for months. I had a bad feeling about it from the get-go, but she assured me they were just friends and how dare I not trust her. Thought I was going crazy because my gut told me something wasn't right, but I was punishing myself for being a bad husband and not trusting my wife. Turned out it was all true. She had been ducking the teammate for months. Most likely ducked someone else during our engagement. Split amicably officially as of last week without any mess. Thank God. Just that crazy look in his eyes when I didn't do the dishes to his standards. Like he was going to hurt me. I should have left then because I was right. I'm glad you're out now. I commend every single one of you who got out within the year. I knew my husband was shit during that time too, but my dumbass put up with him for over 10 years because I wanted to try and make it work. Good job, guys. A cousin of mine married someone who seemed like the perfect woman. They worked in the same store together. And he would brag about how his wife was getting promoted quickly in the company. A few months into the marriage, she tells him she's going out with friends for the evening. An hour or so later, my cousin gets a call from one of his friends. The friend saw her having dinner in a restaurant with the manager of the store that they both worked at. Once he confronted her about it, that was basically the end of the marriage. This was similar to a friend of mine. His wife spent years trying to alienate him from his friends. After they got married they bought a house near his job. She decided she didn't like the commute to her job, even though it was practically the same, and started staying at her parents'. Friend finds out from her parents she hasn't been staying there. Turns out she was going out and partying with co-workers. Then staying with an ex. When she ducked her ex within the first 6 months. Got married in late May. By August or September I found out from my dad that my husband, now ex, and my brother's wife were sexting. She was also my bridesmaid at our wedding. She felt guilty and told my dad, who had to tell me. I forgave him like a dingus, and about a year and a half later I found pictures of him sucking 2 different dongs in our house and also wearing quite a bit of my nice makeup. All of this after we moved to Washington from Florida. It's been wild. We're obviously divorced now. Edited for clarity since I guess that needed to be said. I had to reread this like 5 times before I realized it was your husband and not your dad that was sexting your brother's wife. My brother died a week after the wedding and after about 2 months. He told me that was just too big of a thing to happen in the beginning of a marriage. I tried for 6 more months and then just gave up. I'm sorry about your brother. I'm sorry your husband wasn't supportive. That's kind of a dong move. To say your grief is too much of a drag for me. But it sounds like you weren't a great match in the first place. The next morning I woke up and thought, when would be a socially acceptable time to get divorced? In hindsight that says miles about why I felt I had to get married. 10 years seems pretty reasonable. I could probably last 10 years. Couples counseling within 6 months. Separated within the year. Shitstorm of a divorce and finally free 2 years after that. Would I do it all over again? I'm sure it took years of my life, but I learned so many invaluable lessons about myself along the way. Take care of yourself first. Kids, put that oxygen mask on before you help anyone else. Not me, but my cousin and her husband met at work. Both independent and career focused. When they got back from the honeymoon, he immediately started treating her like his mum and told her she would need to give up work to look after the house. No talk of that before the wedding at all. I think they lasted 4 weeks married. As my grandmother once told me, love is blind, but marriage sees 20/20. Ducking, like and subscribe.